From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Protecting a vital water source for people and producers.
We have a lot of hard work and difficult decisions ahead of us in this basin.
Officials weigh plans on how to make the most out of water coming from the Colorado River. Too much water too soon. Portions of Florida grapple with more than a foot of rainfall falling in 24 hours. As farmers start planning the 2023 crop, a new weather threat emerges.
But we could see some significant coolness.
What forecasters are keeping a close eye on right now on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Happening right now, we're tracking another possible weather threat for the 2023 crop. Meteorologists are predicting a cold snap could hit not only vulnerable winter wheat, but also other spring crops. AgDay's Michelle Rook focuses in on the areas of the country and the crops that could be impacted.
Clinton, we're watching the winter wheat crop as it already has some of the poorest ratings in history due to drought stress and wind damage. It's rated at only 27% good to excellent, 37% poor to very poor. But a cold snap on top of that could take that condition down even further. Ag meteorologist Drew Lerner tells AgDay he's watching this forecast closely because he doesn't have a handle yet on how intense the event could be.
It's not set in stone. The models are not consistent with the cold. It's definitely on the charts. Some days we see it in two pieces. Some days we see it in one. Sometimes it's more broad-based than others. There's still a lot of wishy-washiness in the model data. The reason why we feel confident that it is going to be there, though, is because this pattern has repeated about every 62 days.
And it's not just wheat that could be hurt. Lerner says spring crops could also be damaged since the bitter cold could extend into the Tennessee River Valley.
Here, I'm not suggesting we're going to see freezes in Louisiana, but we could see some significant coolness. I believe, though, the strongly negative PDO that we have right now is going to fight against the cold. So we should limit it to the northern and central parts of the Midwest. I'm saying right now, just a guess, and it's not ready to be set in stone, but it may be down to northern Missouri and central Illinois, maybe southern Indiana and southern Ohio.
Lerner says the corn crop was already hurt in the lower delta in February from the last time this pattern emerged, but the crops are farther along and susceptible to further damage. Now, the 62-day pattern Lerner spoke of hit in the middle of October, December, and February. He says the pattern started out as a fairly benign mass of cool air, but then became broader and much colder as it evolved.
Thanks, Michelle. Some good and bad news in this week's just released drought monitor. Some 26% of the continental U.S. is now in drought. That's down a little more than 2% from last week and down more than 30% from a year ago. But areas in exceptional drought increased slightly, and you can see that is in the southern plains area. Looking specifically at Kansas, more than 43% of the state is now in exceptional drought. And parts of the Sunshine State are being battered with storms this week. Several days of nonstop rain in South Florida, transforming roadways into rivers. Some areas seeing more than a foot of rainfall in 24 hours, with Fort Lauderdale not far behind. Now, the Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport had to close because the surrounding roads were flooded. It could be quite a while before things start to dry out. The Weather Prediction Center says strong to severe storms in the Texas area could also be heading eastward. Planting may get delayed for a little longer in portions of the country. Mark Sharippa is here with an update.
Yes, Clinton, rain in the forecast for various parts of the country. Some portions will be getting some heavy rain, up to 2 inches. Heavy rain in north central Missouri, and that could be up to 2 inches. Also rain in southeastern Louisiana in the New Orleans area. We have some cooler weather coming up in the Great Lakes area. The temperatures in the Great Lakes, just south of the Great Lakes, has been above normal for the last few days. Then it's going to start to get back to normal around Monday and Tuesday. This is a check of your temperatures for this afternoon. At 70 degrees predicted in Atlanta, 79 in St. Louis. You see the warm temperatures there in Chicago. These are about 20 degrees above normal for this time of year. And then those are going to start dropping down as we get into later on. 82 degrees in Dallas, San Antonio, one of the warm spots there, and then Brownsville, Texas, with 90 degrees. Still a little chilly up there around northern Montana. Billings with 48, Salt Lake City 53 degrees, Carson City, Nevada 62, 78 in Phoenix, and Los Angeles checks in with 61 degrees. And this is pretty cool to see. Steve Strashim of Mitchell, Iowa, showing how fast they can transplant onions on a small scale. He said it took about 2.5 hours to plant them all. I'll have more in your forecast coming up.
Now, it's been a tough winter, not just for people in California, but for the state's bees. The cold, wet winter has bees slow to emerge from their hives. Other groups have seen hives damaged by flooding in some of the state's orchards. Most commercial beekeepers send their bees to the Golden State every year to help pollinate California's $5 billion a year almond crop. That said, the rainy weather is expected to bring plenty of wildflowers to the state this spring, and that could mean a good year for honey. A second U.S. District Court has now put a pause on the latest Waters of the U.S. rule. This stops its implementation in 24 additional states. Now, this decision out of North Dakota follows a previous ruling in Texas, which halted the latest WOTUS rule in 2 other states, both Texas and Idaho. Now, the EPA repealed a rule implemented under the Trump administration and finalized this newer version back in December. The purpose is to define which waters fall under the protection of the Federal Clean Water Act. However, many of the nation's largest farm groups again call this latest version overreach. NCBA President Todd Wilkinson, a South Dakota cattle producer, says cattle producers in 26 states now have some additional certainty while this rule is being litigated, and we are optimistic that the Supreme Court will provide nationwide clarity on the federal government's proper jurisdiction over water. Meanwhile, American Farm Bureau's President Zippy Duvall says this isn't just a philosophical dispute. Farmers and ranchers in the remaining states are left with no clear way to determine where federal jurisdiction begins and ends on their own property. The rule creates a fuzzy, subjective assessment that's unfair to landowners. Wheat prices tumbled on Thursday while cattle continue to set new records. We'll have details next in analysis. And later, the future of a major water source out west remains in jeopardy as stakeholders rush to find a solution for farmers and 40 million Americans. Details in the country.
AgDay is brought to you by Tyrannus, committed to moving the acre forward. To drive more value from every acre, visit acreforward.com.
Tractor sales fell again in March. According to the Association of Equipment Manufacturers' monthly flash report, the sales of all tractors in March were down 12% from the same month last year. Now for the month, two-wheel drive smaller tractors were down 14%, while 40 and under 100 horsepower units were down 12%. Two-wheel drive 100 plus horsepower were down 6%. That said, four-wheel drive tractor sales are doing well so far, up 51% this year. Combine sales in March, they totaled 509. That's up 47% from a year ago. Year to date, sales are up 102%. Live cattle reaching new contract highs before pulling back, while grains in mostly lower. Michelle Rook is back with more in today's Markets Now.
Well, Thursday ended mostly lower with the exception of new crop soybeans. Tommy Gersafi, Advanced Trading, is joining us. And Tommy, as the day went on yesterday, it just looked like more of kind of a risk-off day in the commodities sector.
Yeah, so it's the haves and have-nots. If you're trading gold and silver and metals, it was a dynamic big up day. Cattle started up, traded lower, and the grains ended very sad. And there are people who are trading wheat, who are professional wheat traders, who are just absolutely dumbfounded by this move. Not only in the Kansas City wheat, but the spreading against the Board of Trade in KC. Folks up in the Northern Plains are very worried if they'll get it put in time. And it just proves, Michelle, that sometimes the fundamentals don't always match up with the futures price. And as you know, I think the last time I was on, maybe a month ago, the funds were a record short wheat, or real close, and they're probably still really short the Board of Trade wheat contract. Board of Trade wheat within 10-15 cents of being under Board of Trade corn when you look at the May.
So you may see, again, money going out of the commodity sector into the equities, so that money flow we talk about. The other thing we should talk about is the fact that we've had the bull spreads working, or the inverses in corn and soybeans, but that is about to change, isn't it? And that'll impact the cash price.
Very much. As soon as we get done with this taping, I'm going to send a text to clients again, reminding them May options expire next week. And May cash bids are going to change very much to July cash bids. What's that mean to the grower? A 27-cent difference. May corn is 27 cents higher than July corn, and May beans are about 36 cents higher than July beans. Sometimes, as you know, farmers just look down at their phone, they look at their local elevator. You'll know when they've lost, maybe they're busy planting and they say, hey, white corn go down 25 cents today. And that's that switch of that May to July. So what we want you to do is obviously get some cash grain sold, use that money, buy an option. We'd buy a July call. That's the month 25 cents cheaper. And then take the rest of the money, send it to the bank, pay off your operating, or you could make 4.5%. So there's a big difference between making 4.5% and watching wheat go down 10, 15 cents a day. And it would just be a horrible decision, in my opinion, if a farmer paid for storage to store a depreciating asset. They're really betting that commodity is going to zip up 30 cents in the next few months. And if that doesn't happen, Michelle, then they made a poor decision.
That's right. And a lot of elevators have already flipped from May to July or rolled that way anyways. All right, thanks for joining us, Tommy Griffiths. We'll have more AgDay coming up.
Interested in spending a day with a trader? Call Tommy Griffiths at 800-664-4383. AgDay Farm Country Forecast is brought to you by Calhoun Superstructure, engineered fabric buildings serving the agriculture and fertilizer industries for over 30 years. Visit calhounsuperstructure.com/AG. That's calhounsuperstructure.com/AG.
Joining us now, we have Mark Sharippa giving us our national forecast. And Mark, as we talk about these temperatures, they've been pretty warm, but we may have a little bit of a switch coming.
Right. The farmers won't get fooled, though they know, but some of the people who are not farmers for a living might get fooled because those temperatures have been rather warm, but they're going to cool off here in just a few days. They're going to get down into the mid-50s around the Great Lakes area. And the thing about these temperatures is that they have been above normal for this time of year, about 20 degrees above normal for you people here in the just south of the Great Lakes. But they are going to be cooling down quite a bit, so probably not time to plant just yet. Don't let the warm temperatures fool you. Some of the other warm temperatures, we have 91 degrees in Miami. And all these temperatures here are going to be above normal. Probably around Monday or Tuesday is when they're going to drop. We have warm temperatures over here in northern Texas, 90 degrees in Brownsville. We have 85 in Tulsa. These are all predicted for this afternoon. Billings is going to get a chilly 48 degrees. And Phoenix 78, Los Angeles 61 degrees. This is where the activity starts, right here near Louisiana, near New Orleans, but this system is going to go off into the ocean here quite soon. Friday at 4 o'clock, we see more clouds moving into this part over here, this part of the country, the southeastern part. By Friday, by 7 p.m., we're going to have a line of storms right around here, St. Louis, north up into the Twin Cities in Minnesota. Saturday night, we will have this line coming right up. It's like a gate almost of storms coming up through that part of the country. And temperature outlook for April 18th through the 22nd, we see above normal temperatures down here in the northern part of Texas and Oklahoma. And then a few days later, still warm temperatures down here, cooler temperatures out here in the west. For you people here just south of the Great Lakes, these are normal temperatures. This is the estimate of the rain through 7 o'clock on Monday night. You see right around in the northwestern part of the lower peninsula of Michigan and the southeastern part of the UP upper peninsula, some high rain there. That's a check of your forecast.
The Biden administration is urging U.S. meat processors to make sure children aren't being hired illegally to perform dangerous jobs at their plants. The call comes after an investigation over the past year found more than 100 kids working overnight for a company that cleans slaughterhouses, handling dangerous equipment like skull splitters and bone saws. Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack sending a letter to the 18 largest meat and poultry producers. In it, he urged them to examine the hiring practices at their companies and suppliers. The Labor Department has reported a 69% increase since 2018 in the number of children being employed illegally in the U.S. Colorado farmers will soon be able to legally fix their own equipment. It comes after a bill passed in Colorado's Senate this week. The Consumer Right to Repair Agriculture Equipment Act had won approval in the state's House of Representatives earlier this year. Now, under the legislation, farm machinery manufacturers, including John Deere and C&H Industrial, would be obligated to provide farmers with diagnostic tools, software, documents, and repair manuals. John Deere releasing a statement saying it supports farmers' right to repair, but believes the legislation is unnecessary. Some equipment makers worry the legislation will allow farmers to override certain safety systems or emissions controls, but lawmakers amended the bill to include language that farmers and repair shops would not be authorized to make such modifications. Now, Colorado's governor is expected to sign the bill into law. It would go into effect on January 1st. All right, here's a no-brainer. Without water, crops won't grow. And decisions about a vital source of water out west could change the future for farming. Details next.
In the Country on Ag Day is brought to you by Pivot Bio. What if you had the nitrogen you need already on seed? Pivot Bio is the first company to apply nitrogen on seed. The nitrogen you need, now on seed, from Pivot Bio. Learn more at pivotbio.com.
40 million Americans rely on the Colorado River for drinking water. Farmers also rely on it as it's one of the nation's most important sources of fresh water. But as Lucy Kafanoff reports, years of drought have federal officials floating some tough options to slash water usage as water levels from major reservoirs continue to plummet.
As water levels for the Colorado River's major reservoirs remain at alarmingly low levels, exacerbated by more than 2 decades of drought and chronic overuse, the federal government releasing a dire assessment of the painful choices facing the American West.
We cannot kick the can on finding solutions, and the women and men responsible for managing the system for the benefit of 40 million Americans and countless ecosystems.
Snaking across the Southwest and into Mexico, the Colorado River is the lifeblood of the region. It waters booming cities while nourishing some of the nation's most fertile fields and generates hydroelectricity for the Southwest. But without massive changes to how the water is used and distributed, all that could soon be at risk.
We have a lot of hard work and difficult decisions ahead of us in this basin, but those paths have dire consequences in some cases and may spur opposition or even litigation.
The options presented by the Interior Department to cut 2 million acre-feet in water usage in 2024 are grim. One prioritizes the needs of thirsty farming regions in California, which along with native tribes have a higher water priority claim. But that could devastate major western cities like Las Vegas, which gets 90% of its water from the Colorado River, as well as Los Angeles and Phoenix. Option 2, spread the pain evenly among all the users, which could lead to lengthy court battles. A third option, doing nothing at all, might have the highest cost if the river continues to dwindle.
This no action alternative, we will see the most impacts to the system. We can expect water levels to continue to decline, threatening the operations of the system and the water supply of 40 million people.
While an unusually wet winter is providing some relief, it's not enough to solve the Colorado River crisis.
Everyone who lives and works in the basin knows that one good year will not save us from more than 2 decades of drought.
For some communities in Arizona, the dire future is a present reality. Part of Maricopa County, about an hour's drive from downtown Phoenix, the Rio Verde foothills community was a slice of paradise until it began to run dry. Too many homes, too little water.
I think everybody thinks the government or somebody's going to take care of it. And unfortunately, I think that's what most of the U.S. is thinking. And they need to wake up, and people need to start conserving water now, before it's too late.
We lost all of our water.
Drought has already pushed farmers like Will Feelander to the brink.
Do you fear that the future of farming in Arizona is under threat?
Yeah, no one can produce it like the Colorado River can for food. It's just, nowhere on earth is it done like that. So yeah, I'm really worried. 50 years down the road, unless we come up with solutions, farming won't be here.
But time to come up with those solutions is running out.
And that's all the time we have this morning. From all of us here at Ag Day, I'm Clint Griffiths. Have a great day on the farm.